that there is the film, the documentary film, The Last Animals by Kate Brooks. And she's with me on Skype, and we're going to be introducing her shortly. But I also do want to let you know that today is actually World Earth Day. All right. And Kate, hello. Hi, Kate.
I can't hear.
Oh, no, she can't hear me. Okay, we're going to try and get that sorted just now. Kate Brooks, again, is the documentary filmmaker of The Last Animals that we were just watching there. Kate, can you hear me now? Oh, no, I don't think she can hear me still. Okay, let's try and get this sorted for the moment. Um, Let me just tell you, though, a bit about World Earth Day. All right. World Earth Day, of course, it's marked today. And this year, part of what they're talking about is how to do our best and play our own parts in cleaning up our communities. On April 22nd, we're currently flooding the world with hope, optimism, and action. That is the call there. This is a call to save the planet. And graffiti writers, street artists, and muralists from every continent will be seizing the power of art to inspire action for our planet on Earth Day 2020. This here is a global movement. And I'm sure many of you, as we were growing up, you could see poaching videos, right? I don't know, there's that iconic video image of when those tusks, elephant tusks, were being burnt as a show of saying, you know what, we're not going to gain money from this because we do not support this trade. Certainly, the extinction of animals has been a humongous topic around the world, and there are many people in the front lines doing whatever they can to try and address this issue. And one of the ways that they're doing that is through film. Now, Kate Brooks is a documentary filmmaker, and part of what we want to discuss with her is what created this passion for her, as far as really fighting for the rights of animals and fighting against poaching. We also want to be able to compare what has been the global trajectory since the making of this film, since the different proclamations that have been made. Have there been any advances? Have there been any changes or any improvements in this? So I wonder if we now have Kate online. Hi, Kate, you can hear me now?
Hi, good morning.
Morning, how are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you. Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day to you too. And just to let our viewers know, where are you calling from?
I'm in Washington, D.C. right now.
And I hope you're keeping well and safe despite everything going on.
I am definitely trying. It's about 5 weeks into quarantine.
Oh, that's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we just watched the trailer to your documentary film, The Last Animals, and really powerful imagery there and a powerful storyline as well, as far as what you're really passionate about. And today, of course, being World Earth Day, I just want to hear your own perspectives about the importance of a day like this one.
Well, I think, in my opinion, we are at a point where we really should be thinking about Earth Day as being every day. I think what COVID-19 is really doing is reminding people that we really are one ecosystem. But I think today is always an important day for bringing people together and taking a minute to pause and think about wildlife, climate,
Yeah.
and everything that's happening on our planet.
Right. And you certainly have done a lot about that. I mean, in many ways, you've really devoted your life and your art towards documenting this. You're a documentary filmmaker, you're a photographer as well, and you've done quite a bit on poaching and fighting to save animals from extinction. Where did that passion sort of begin? Where did that arise from?
Well, I was a photographer for many, many years before going into filmmaking. And I have to say that I fell in love with wildlife in Kenya. I love Kenya. And my first encounter with wildlife was in the Masai Mara. And prior to focusing on conservation issues, I spent many years covering conflict in the Middle East and in Afghanistan. And essentially, had come to Kenya right after being in Afghanistan had witnessed a lot of trauma at that particular time. And a friend of mine took me to the Masai Mara, and it was in the Masai Mara that I felt like I could really heal from what I had just witnessed. And it really was simply having that moment in interaction with, the natural world, and just understanding the beauty and importance of that and wanting to help protect that, because ultimately I think they helped me heal from the inhumanity that I had witnessed. So this was really a project in giving back and and a piece of activism to make a difference, to raise people's awareness, and to spark action.
Very interesting. So you went from the animals healing you to you doing your part to now try and heal their own environment. And you now have this documentary film that we just watched the trailer for. Tell us about The Last Animals. What is the biggest takeaway that you want people to take when they watch this film?
I really think connecting, the film is very much about the story of the northern white rhinos, which, they've had a very sort of tragic fate. Although there are people who are continued to be dedicated to trying to save them from complete extinction, with there only being two left on the planet. So it's a foreboding story of what happens when too little is done too late. And on the other hand, it's also a story about the conservation heroes who don't give up in the face of adversity. The story is about what's happening to wildlife, but it's equally about the dedication and commitment of conservationists. And I think the takeaway, of the film, frankly, in my mind, this film is more relevant than ever. I mean, ultimately, COVID-19 is considered to be a zoonotic disease, and I think this drives home that beyond the desecration of the environment and the human sacrifice and risks that rangers take, and the losses for protecting biodiversity on the planet, that we are also at a point where we are living so out of sync with nature, that we really have to stop. And because it ultimately, I think this moment is so incredibly confronting, because this is also sort of confronting us with our own extinction in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah, absolutely. And in many ways, this whole story of poaching and the issue of poaching and animal extinction, I think in many ways seems very far removed from so many of us, and we think it's not an issue that affects us. But this actually has a lot of global linkages. This is a global issue. Maybe you could touch on that as well.
Well, it's definitely a global issue. Africa is where a lot of the poaching happens, and the primary consumer markets are in Asia. But of course, wildlife trafficking is happening all over the planet. I would say there has been a lot of progress in different ways over the last few years, from a number of ivory bans being implemented. The UK ivory ban, Singapore has passed the ban, Taiwan, China passed the ban, and I feel that those actions still need to continue, but we really need to realize that whatever our relationship is to animals, that what we're doing to them is also impacting our own health and the health of the planet.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the collapse of biodiversity around the world.
Absolutely. And I hear you as far as, still a lot more needs to be done, and this needs to continue. And for me, one of the most iconic images when I was growing up was of these an ivory tusk tower really being burnt by, I think, former President Daniel Arap Moi, just as a symbol of saying, you know what, we're not going to support this. But this film was done in 2018. Since then and now, what would be your assessment as far as the progress that has actually been made? Do you think we are really paying attention to this, or is it just, you know, policy talk that's happening, but we're not actually seeing that translate on the ground? What would be your assessment?
Well, I would say, this film first had its festival premiere at Tribeca Film Festival in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
The things that I have seen happen since then is the Hong Kong ivory ban. I'm sorry, I'm getting an echo. So the Hong Kong ivory ban, the UK ivory ban, the Singapore ivory ban, Australia has announced a ban.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a movement happening.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to happen. Everything just needs to accelerate and happen much more quickly. And in terms, I think that poaching has reduced, but which in for at least elephant ivory poaching and also rhino poaching has decreased, which is great news. But I know that, for example, right now, there's a lot of concerns about the potential for poaching to increase as a number of African countries are going to be hugely hit with tourism revenue losses. And so this is a moment actually where I think everybody really needs to be particularly aware. And, I feel like the other part of this issue that's given the audience on Switch TV that I think is so important to drive home to youth in Kenya is that the people behind wildlife trafficking really are criminal groups. They're involved in lots of types of criminal activities. These are not people that you want to get involved in, and that they have done lots of damage to African communities and communities in Kenya, and so in some cases I think it can be seen as a means of survival, but on the other hand, understanding the full chain of events and the amount of suffering it causes along the way really is something that should make everybody stop and say, we don't want our children, we don't want our men, we don't want our communities to be exploited beyond caring for our wildlife because it's our heritage.
All right. And I think that's a good point to actually bring this discussion to a close by really asking the question, from your viewpoint, what are some of the things that, we as citizens, or are there things that individuals can do to sort of lend their voice to this cause?
Sure. Well, Kenya has been a leader in conservation in Africa, and people, I hope that Kenyans are very sort of proud of Kenya's position to not trade ivory and to uphold that. But I think the best thing right now to do is for people, particularly youth, to get really educated on these issues. One of the things that we're doing later on today, which I hope many people who tune in for the broadcast will join, is we are having two quote unquote live lessons on a platform called Encounter EDU. There's a number of specialists coming together to talk about these issues. It's open platform. It's meant for children 11 plus, and there's literally thousands of kids all over the planet from different countries tuning in. And I really think that that is just becoming really getting conservation literacy is what I would call it, is critically important.
Okay. Kate, it's been such a pleasure talking to you this World Earth Day. Thank you again for doing this film. And I think in the spirit of education, very important for me to reiterate that what she said is you can actually find some courses on this, or at least some discussion around it on Encounter EDU. But also here on Switch TV at 2 p.m., we're going to be airing that documentary that Kate did right here on our station. So that's another way for you to be able to really educate yourself about the matter, get some perspective about how serious the issue is. And so with that said, Kate, thank you once again for your company this morning, and stay safe there in DC. All right.
Thank you so much, Joyce.
You're most welcome. All right, guys. So that's going to do it for that segment right there. We do need to take a break now. When we come back, we're going to be jumping into our fitness segment, and we'll be bringing you the journey of a young man in his weight loss journey. Stay tuned.